knows where that's at. Just a little beach town. Okay.
We're recording over here, bailing out of this because it's
Bill, you want anything?
Oh, no.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
You have tea, Don. Shush.
Not you. Talk about something else.
Oh boy. I'm fine. Thank you so much.
Get a gurney for Don.
Well, before we start, you're probably going to have to adjust the camera anyway.
They're a fireball crowd here.
Circle.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that one. Looking back there, seems about right.
So, how are things?
I think things are good. Actually, really good. A lot of good announcements lately, so that's been positive.
Got what?
A lot of good announcements lately. So
I'm waiting for the Speedway announcement for the presenting sponsor.
I think you'll be getting that sometime in the near future.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. So.
And I've got Steven Stark scheduled for
Oh, good.
the first week, I think, in February.
Yeah.
See, have everything
Steven's
done.
great. Yeah.
Good guy. Oh,
Yeah, really good guy. Really good guy.
Because I get a lot of questions. What's this goal? We can't watch live streaming free anymore? No. What's the goal? I have no idea.
Don't be afraid of the mics. The hot spot's right here. Just right up to
Okay.
the mouth.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Talk loud because you can always turn it down.
Exactly.
There you go.
It's easier for you to turn it down than it is for
Then
you
to turn it up.
That's
Yep.
right.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, he's good. I think last time I was on with Steven, and yeah, I thought he touched on a lot of good stuff. So.
He said he'd come earlier, but all the dots aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed. Let's wait. I said, it's fine. Wait until it's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more interesting then.
Then he tried to make it sound interesting. He said, I really enjoyed it. I look forward to coming back. Yeah, sure you do.
Hey, don't sell yourself short, Don. It's a good show.
Anybody that helps tell the story.
That's right. I agree.
Problem I'm having now is there's not that many drivers that live here,
Yeah.
and they'll come in for a couple of days and they go home for 6 weeks while the teams work on the car, and they're not here. They're out playing golf.
Yeah.
Hey, if you happen to hear
Yeah.
that Mario's coming in for something, I want to get him.
Okay.
Because I asked him the question he really loved when he had that announcement
Yeah,
about
with
the
his
thing.
50th anniversary.
Yeah, and I asked a question, he comes and said, thank you, that was really good. I should have said then, but we were talking about something else.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I want to get him in here.
Absolutely.
We'll be here in a minute. Technical as usual, as on occasion. Hello? Steve, can you hear me, Steve?
You're getting here.
Thank you very much. I can hear you. If Fluffy calms down, she won't block the sound waves going there. My plan is for about 35, 40 minutes with the two of you.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, and then I got the guy that you've heard of, Vintage Indy Registry
Okay. Yeah.
organization, and he's here. I'm going to get him
awesome.
for a couple minutes.
That's perfect. Hey, we're
So,
good with whatever.
Well, rather than one at a time, the two of you will
No, I think it's good.
Sure.
Back and
Play
forth.
off each
We
other
work,
really well.
we work together well.
And then you can say, he's full of crap. This is the story. Okay.
That's the story. I'm sticking to it.
You're not trying to say it's warm down in stump jumper country, are you? No. Oh yeah, about 2 degrees. Yeah, I understand. Bunk. Are we ready? How are we doing?
Gotta count her up. It's just not counting. Stop it.
Hey, if anybody is considering taking a trip to Gateway in August, and you might want to take the bus trip, I got information up here if you'd like it. Howdy, that would be good for you. You can drink and smoke and sing and dance on the bus.
Can I go?
You'll be there.
On the bus?
Well, actually, $149 per person. That might be cheaper than our travel program. So maybe I'll.
Take a look at it. Take it back to what's
Kim, I got some information here.
what's her name? The other one. Laura. Who has no clue.
Laura, I've got some good options for us.
Thanks.
Is it almost up?
Everybody's gonna be riding on the bus.
Is it almost up?
Yeah, go for it, Don. You're on.
Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2019 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGilvery Speedway in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana. Tonight's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, NTT IndyCar Series, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and SVRA. A couple things to mention in case you hadn't heard. Betty Rutherford passed away a couple of days ago. We want to send our condolences out to JR and his family. I know she wasn't well for a while, but she passed away, I think, Saturday, I believe it was. Also, my friend Fred Jones, he's been here before. A lot of you know him. He was visiting his wife's relatives in Tennessee, I think, and he was coming down the stairs. He missed a step, fell and broke his hip, but he got a new one. He's doing well. And the Meyer Shank Racing team is set to run some more races this year. They're running, I think, 10 with Jack Harvey. We're trying to get Jack in here. I know somebody's a fan of Jack Harvey. And it was announced that Aero Electronics will be the prime sponsor for Schmidt-Peterson Racing. It now will be Aero Schmidt-Peterson Racing, and it will be on all three cars. The third car being for Rob Wickens, who, if and when he can come back, they got a car with his name on it ready to go. And next week, my guest is going to be Jim Leo, who is the guru of grunts and groans and exercising at PitFit. And he's working with Rob Wickens right now, so we'll have an update on how he's doing and what the things look like for him. And don't forget that the Rolex 24 starts on Saturday, and the Penske Acura team and Meyer Shank Racing is ready to go, and two of the drivers for Shank, they got all four females. Two of the drivers we know, Bia from Brazil is there, and so is Simona Di Silvestro. So if you get a chance, keep an eye on that. This Saturday night from 8 to midnight, Grovetown is the entertainment here at McGilvery's. If you've ever heard of them, come on out. If you haven't, come on out and hear them anyway. And the speaker series resumes on the 26th, which is Saturday at 5:30, and the guest of honor, the one, the only, Mr. Donald Davidson. There'll be a lot of special things going on with Donald, trying to trip him up. Probably won't happen. But the admission is $25, and you get some food, and with any luck, Bill's mom will make her famous cookies. So if you get a chance, get over there. It's at the Grand King Shop, which is at 8155 Crawfordsville Road. Come on by. At the museum, they still have the Hoosier Thunder Indiana Sprint short track heritage. It's on until April 21st, and then it switches to a Mario show. So if you want to see the short track cars, come on out. Don't forget your favorite doctor's appointment is a dentist. Do yourself a favor. Go to the Indy Dental Group. You'll love it. Dr. Jack Miller, Dr. Liz Lewis, fabulous practice, and they're rated one of the highest in the area. So give them a call, make an appointment. Number 317-846-6125. And if you spend as much time as I do trying to get my computer to work, you need to call Jack at Computer Overdrive. He can help you, and he can fix it. You can make an appointment. Call him at 317-328-0766. Now, my first two guests tonight, I'm very happy to have the two of them here. Sitting closest to me is a young man who came to IndyCar by way of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and he came at a time when things were a little shaky in the Indy Racing League, and I found out quickly he was a man here to help in the sales department, and he came through with flying colors. He was last the chief of staff for the president of the university, and now he is the overall IndyCar chief of staff. one of the best in the business. Please welcome Mr. Mark Sibla. Sitting next to Mark is an engineer who's got many years of experience. He's worked for most of the major teams. He's a graduate engineer from Purdue University, and he has been around and doing a lot of neat things. Now he's the vice president of competition engineering for the IndyCar series, and I got a number of questions about the new car and the new stuff they're doing to it to make it better. Please welcome Mr. Bill Pappas. When you graduated with a graduate degree from someplace they call it the Ohio State University. Was motorsports in your vision, or did it just happen?
Yeah, actually, when I was in the program and I was looking at internship opportunities, an internship opportunity opened up at Mid-Ohio. And, my father, when I was younger, would always take me out to Spring Nationals, which was in Lakewood, Ohio, NHRA event. And so I always had a passion for racing, and I certainly followed the 500, when it was broadcast, and just enjoyed it. So when I saw that internship come up, I said, hey, I need to throw my hat in the ring there and see if I can't get an opportunity to work at Mid-Ohio. And it started off that way as an internship, and then it expanded to where they said, hey, would you like to continue to kind of work here in a part-time capacity? And then it turned full-time when I graduated. So it was a great opportunity. I learned so much when I was there, and it's still one of my favorite events to go to. Bit of a homecoming, but yeah, I knew I wanted to go into motorsports.
How did the connection with at that time the Indy Racing League happen? Did you stumble in the door, or did they knew about you and went after you?
It was actually interesting. So I had been at Mid-Ohio, and I was really happy there. But there had been an opportunity at a place where we now race, which is Gateway. But it had a different ownership group, which was Dover at the time, and I had gone down there for an interview, and it was fine, but it didn't feel like what I wanted to do next. And as I was driving, I was thinking, if I could do anything, what would I want to do? And I thought I'd want to work for Indy Racing League at the time, now IndyCar, and was coming back on 70 and going through Indianapolis, and I had a contact at the series at that point in time that I worked with from a sponsorship. And so I reached out to her and I said, listen, I'm sure opportunities never come available. I'm sure this is a long shot, but if it ever does, please keep my name in mind. 2 weeks later, they reached out and said, hey, we've got this new position, which is to help the teams get sponsorship, right? So from a series side, what are the assets we can provide them? How do we help? Materials, go with them on sales pitches and so forth. And I thought, man, this is amazing. So that's how it happened, and I've been fortunate ever since.
And I will say to you that at the time prior to his arrival, getting the series to help you wasn't that easy, because every once in a while they'd try and go, psst, hey, come with us. And all of that stopped when Mark came on board, and a lot of teams at the time, $500,000 or $750,000 was a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And they'd come to me, hey, can you help us? Who do we talk to get some help from the series? I said, Mr. Sibla will help. No. The series, I said, no, listen to me. This is a different program completely. As they tried it, they found out for once in my life, I was right. And more of them came along, and I've always been very thankful to you because you stood for what you were there for, and it worked out great. Now, Chief of Staff for Jay Fry, they moved him up so they couldn't leave you just sit around. So what is the Chief of Staff for IndyCar? Does everybody, what Jay gets, everything come through you to him?
It's really, so everything reports into Jay now from an IndyCar perspective. So marketing, PR, in addition to his prior responsibilities with competition and operations. Kind of in an interim basis, we're also working on the sponsorship elements. Obviously, a big announcement with NTT joining as a series entitlement sponsor. So what I try to do more than anything is just help to get things done, right? Help to make things more efficient. Help to make sure that groups are communicating and that we understand the value that each of these departments bring. Some of the best ideas that I've heard from a television marketing standpoint have come from Bill and Tino, from engineers saying, here's some of the things we're working on. Here's what we need to tell fans because they'd really love it. So it's taking ideas like that and trying to make sure that that's finding the right home on the marketing side, on the PR side, working with our television partners. I know Bill and Tino and some others have been talking with NBC and saying, hey, here's some things we need to try to convey. So really, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to make things as efficient and as effective as possible for the series overall.
All right, Bill, since all of a sudden you're in marketing, what got you into motorsports? Did you go to Purdue with the intent of getting an engineering degree for motorsports, or were you in motorsports ahead of time and thought, let's go here?
Well, I grew up on the north side of Indianapolis. My parents came from Chicago, knew nothing about racing. They got hooked into it through some friends that they befriended up on the north side. My dad started going to the 500 in 1956, and I came along in 1961. By then, they were going to the race on a regular basis. They became very close friends with people that were involved. They'd go to the Queen's Ball on a regular basis. We had a neighbor who worked for Allison's, and he had the only 3-car garage in the neighborhood. And when the Can-Am cars came to Indianapolis, he worked for Bruce McLaren. He'd bring the Can-Am cars to our neighborhood. I'd go over there and polish wheels and do whatever I could there. And then month of May, I spent as much time out at Speedway asking people if I could clean things. Back in the old garages, they got dirty quick, so swept them out. And so all along, I just was taken by the sounds, the noise, the exotic look of these cars. And so I went to Purdue with the idea that someday I'd like to be involved in racing. I'd love to design my own car, and just kept working towards that goal. And lo and behold, 35 years ago, I got an offer, and it's never looked back.
You've worked for a number of teams, but now you're the vice president of operations and engineering for IndyCar. The cars currently are built by Dallara. Do they take your design, or do they submit one to you and you guys adjust?
It was a collaboration. It was really neat. Jay, myself, and Tino went to Italy 2 Novembers ago, and we sat down, and at the time, I had some very clear ideas of what I thought the next generation IndyCar needed to look like and how it needed to work. And through their designer and with me and Tino, we just kind of sculpted what the car was going to look like. And then we went through the exercise of CFD work on the car, and then ultimately model testing the car, and ultimately we ended up with what we've got.
Do you like having one car, a manufacturer?
It's a two-edged sword. I'm a big fan of competition. I think it'd be great if we had multiple manufacturers, but right now we don't have the economics for it. So we have a great partner in Dallara. They've responded to everything we've asked for in the last 2 years. So right now we're very happy with our one manufacturer.
Would it be possible if somebody said, okay, I can build one of these for my team? Could they build it for the price that they can buy it from Dallara for?
That'd be a very tough thing to do.
Well, I got to think it would cost at least twice as much.
It'd be very expensive.
Very expensive. Now, the new car races great on street and road courses. I mean, they're phenomenal. There was a little chatter. Hello, am I still alive? Yeah. There was a little chatter about the 2.5 mile ovals at Pocono and Indianapolis, that they weren't quite up to snuff what you would like competition wise and handling wise. I noticed the new pieces have been coming out. Have you got that problem pretty well under control so far?
Well, again, we looked at the problem, and there's multiple inputs into what created the problem. It just wasn't the car itself.
Right.
So one big factor obviously is the weather conditions. It had a huge impact on the performance of the cars last May. So we're hoping that the weather cooperates and isn't quite as hot. But yeah, we sat down and looked at how the car performed. We took input from the teams and got what they thought was the problems with the car. And then we actually have partnered with ARC, which is a company here in Indianapolis, and we've done extensive CFD work looking at the car in traffic and tried to see where the flow and the patterns off the car in front, and if that was causing some of the problems. And from there, we looked at what could be some solutions. We found out that the front wing out at the tips was stalling. So we've addressed that by notching the front wing itself out of the outboard by the end plates. Again, we, through the CFD studies, have recognized that will help the cars once they get up into traffic. We then took it the next step and actually had a test at the Speedway last fall with 6 cars. We usually go testing with 1 car from each manufacturer, but we thought it was so important that we brought 3 of each. And the guys went out and ran together and ran by themselves. We also, with our partner Firestone, told them what we thought were problems, from this car's design standpoint. They addressed that with tire design. So between the tires and the aerodynamics, we think we took a pretty good swing at improving what we think the problems with the car was at the Speedway last year.
And I talked to a couple of the drivers that were there, and they said it's amazing the change from last year to when they tested in November. And also the Firestone tire, they said they really stuck to the track because they used the other tire where there was more downforce. Now they had a little less, and Firestone stepped up and took care of that.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting to me that they sell me a tire that's going to be 70,000 miles. I've got 85 on mine. But they can make a tire. I think one of your requests was to have the tires last through the fuel stop. So when they make this fuel stop, they can change tires. They don't have to make an extra stop. And they've done that. To me, they're a phenomenal partner in this whole operation.
Well, it's truly a science. There's no guesswork with what they're doing. They know, what compounds will start to wear away, what compound temperature it needs to be to where it'll grip. Construction-wise, they've recognized, that it's a big part of the spring system, so they've addressed construction. They've done a great job. They've responded really, really well, when we started talking to them. It's been a great collaboration. The big thing that I emphasized when I came here was we all need to communicate. It's all of our problem. It's not a tire problem. It's not a car problem. It's not a series problem. We're in this together, and everybody's responded really, really well. It's been a lot of fun to do this.
The interesting thing that I see when I watch a race, or even if I'm at one, there's a series that has a tire that a lot of times when you go to change them, they're shredded. But you don't see that problem with Firestone. These cars are faster. They're heavier, or maybe not heavier, but they're faster, and they got a little more downforce, I think, and they don't shred.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just, after years and years of working in the series, they know what they need to put on the cars to get us, like you said, the stint. We're always, balancing wear versus performance, and they've done a very good job.
How do you like the way things have changed now? They've taken Jay Fry, who came in as president of operations and competition, and they've moved him to president of the entire IndyCar series. What I thought he brought to the table, and my hat has always been off to Mark for this move, bringing him in, having been a team owner and having had complaints in another series and nobody listened, now he's in a position where he listens. And you talk to any of the teams in the paddock, can you talk to Jay? Absolutely. Will he listen to you? Absolutely. But you got to listen to him because he sometimes has as good an idea or better than we do. So he's got to be a good guy to work with.
He's a great guy to work with and certainly a great guy to work for. And I think to just give a little bit of perspective, when he first joined us, he was on the revenue side. He came in as the chief revenue officer, so handling sponsorship and those types of sales opportunities. The first thing I recognized about him is he just develops relationships quickly, right? He's very much about listening. He's very much about ideas, being inclusive, talking through what people's thoughts are, and then taking that information and reacting accordingly. And he did a great job on that side. He's done a phenomenal job, certainly coming over. He brought Bill in, recognized Bill's background on the team side, and recognized that was a huge stakeholder group that we needed to listen to. And I think what he's done on the team side with other people on his staff by making decisions that teams have input in, that don't come as surprises. We go to owner meetings, we go to team manager meetings. There's topics, but there's nothing that's a surprise. And that has gone over so well. And so now you replicate that out into PR, you replicate it out into marketing. I think he's done just a great job, and again, utilizing his staff. He's very much the type that when you need my assistance, let me know, but I'm going to let you run with it. And that's helped on the comp and ops side to have a 5-year plan that's been developed. And the first thing he's mentioned is we need one on the PR side, we need one on the marketing side. And I think that the feedback we've already gotten is, the ability for him to listen, to take in viewpoints. He's also been there from a team owner standpoint,
right.
Although a different series. He's been there. And so he knows the challenges. He knows what a lot of these folks face. And so he also can throw in, his thoughts. But it's very much a collaborative effort. Just as Bill was saying, they've done such a nice job with partners like Firestone and so forth. It's very much happened on the team side too. And so I think it's replicating that out. I think it's a big win for IndyCar. I think probably what you're really starting to see is people that deep down care about the sport, that are involved, and they want to see it be successful. And, we want to see the team succeed, whether that's through sponsorship, whether that's through, the cost of parts, different opportunities there. And I think that's what you're starting to see as a culture with IndyCar. And I think that's what's helping to, have new teams be introduced, teams grow, and so forth. So I think it's a very bright future. I think it's a great move. And again, also from an organization standpoint, it allows all of us to work closer. So that's obviously a win too.
Well, I think two things speak to what the series stands for and where it's headed. NTT, which has an annual sales of $110 billion, to look at a series like this, and then for Aero to step up the way they have with Sam Schmidt, and like you said, a couple other teams are coming on board now. The series is heading in the right direction, and I agree with what you said Bill wants to do is let television know what we're doing, because you'd be surprised emails I get. What's everybody doing? I on vacation? No. By the 11th of March, if it ain't done, you're behind the schedule. So all the work goes on now. When the green flag drops, everybody's ready to go and things are in place. And I think do the TV people look to you, Bill, for the answers and providing them with the information so they can pass it on?
Well, it's been an interesting exercise. Again, me and Tino Bella, who's our chief aerodynamicist, we were race engineers for 30 years plus, but before that we're fans, and so you sit and watch the race, and you're going, well, why aren't we explaining this? Why aren't we showing this? What's the deal here? And I think with NBC coming on board, it's kind of like a new chapter. And so we sat down with some folks from NBC right before the end of the year, explained, our concerns, and they're going, this is news to us. This is awesome. Help us, in areas that we wouldn't have thought of presenting to the fan. So we've like Mark was saying, we sat down and we brainstormed a bit and came up with several ideas and presented it to them, and they're right now, looking into how to actually put that into motion and get it on TV. So it's been, interesting, the transition or the partnership from being an engineer to now, like you joked about, the marketing and PR and TV side. So it's a lot of fun. A lot of things go forward should be even better. So I'm looking forward to it. And we're excited about it.
Well, actually, now that you've said that, I'm not. I have you here to answer that. Now they're going to be able to turn on television. Now what am I talk to you about? Where to buy a good fresh pretzel, or the best place to eat when I go to town? I got a question for you here. It says it appears as though the Super Speedway package offers more than one rear wing. Please comment on that.
Actually, we have only one rear wing, but this next year will allow the teams to increase the amount of downforce they want to run by not only wing angle, which they had last year, but they'll have multiple rear wing gurneys that they'll be able to put on the car and increase total downforce in 50-pound increments up to 200 pounds. Then to balance that, we have some front wing gurneys and pieces that they'll be able to put on to rebalance the car, so you could end up with significantly more downforce on a car. And then some other team may decide to go low downforce and not run that hardware, and could see some different strategies going forward.
Do they still have the wicker bill? Can you adjust that? Is it?
Well, that's the piece that we've introduced. Last year we didn't have those,
You didn't?
so this year we've decided to introduce that.
Unfortunately, somebody asked this because I was too dumb. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't want to embarrass myself and ask, what's the definition of CFD? What the heck is it?
Computer flow dynamics. Basically what it's doing is putting in millions and millions of bits into a computer and then running those bits across a body, and then it graphically presents the flow pattern around that car and what happens behind it. We're using that, it's a very, very economical alternative to wind tunnel testing.
Really?
Yes.
Well, one thing I noticed when the first DW12 came out, they didn't do the testing ahead of time like they did this last car. And they came over here to the Speedway, and Dan Weldon, who came that night after testing, I said, how was the car? That was a hoot. They could barely get over 200 miles an hour. And I asked the question ahead of time, is this car going to run before they ever tested? I was told, and I won't say by who. Oh, yeah. How do you know? We wind tested it. Oh, good. How'd that work out? Not real well. So now you guys took a different approach. What the heck is going on? Took a different approach, and this time the car worked, and now you need only make adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, it was a extensive program. Again, once we came up with the idea and the concept of how the car was going to look, Dallara used their CFD program and ran the car in the computer, and they says it looks like it's going to do what we thought it would do. Then you move to the wind tunnel to correlate that data to the CFD predictions. Those two correlated, and then we went the last step and went and tested it at the 4 different disciplines that we race on. Super Speedway, obviously Indianapolis being the most important. We wanted to make sure it worked there. Then we went to the short track at Iowa. Then we went to Mid-Ohio, and then finished at Sebring.
And so far, so good.
So far, so good.
Mark, you came from a sales area into now the executive. How is the sales looking? Is IndyCar got enough attention now with NTT coming on, a huge company worldwide, and Aero is not any slouch either? Are sales companies looking, or are our companies looking toward IndyCar as a mode of networking and getting their name out to the world?
Yeah, I think when you look at the sponsorship environment, it's an ultra competitive environment, right? And a lot of times what companies are looking for are, what are those properties on the rise? I want to get involved, I want to grow with their fan base and so forth. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing right now. You talked a little bit about the relationship with the teams, and the NTT program came from the team telling us to talk to them. That wouldn't have happened years ago. And the first thing that
right.
Jay said to them was, is your deal done? I'm not going to talk to them until your deal is done. And so once their deal got done, then we said, okay, now we'll talk to them, right? But we wanted to make sure that was the case. And I think that just tells you a little bit about the philosophy change. But yes, I think, sponsors are looking at this as a property that's very much on the rise. They're looking at it as a property that has got a lot of the key things that they want to check. It's an audience that's dedicated. We've seen that through data that our fans are very much loyal to sponsors. They'll go out of their way to support them. I think we've got a lot of stability that's starting to occur, whether that's drivers, whether that's teams, venues. Steven, I know Starks, you've got coming up in a few weeks, and talking with him is great, to understand what's going on from a venue standpoint. So you add stability and you add growth, and that's something that attracts sponsors. Then you throw in things like what's going on with NBC, right? And one of the things that we noticed is during some of these NFL playoff games, they were talking about the Indy 500. I can't remember that in a long time.
No.
And so I think that shows their interest. And there's also a growing movement, and I think this is a very good thing, of the sanctioning bodies in the U.S., ourselves, NASCAR, IMSA, working together and talking about not just safety, but, hey, what else can we do together? What else can we co-promote? And that's not a bad thing, right? Motorsports Rising as a whole is good. We all have our strengths. We all have things that maybe we can grow on. And so I think that's working out well for us too.
I have followed this sport since 1964. Not as long as your dad. I didn't get there then. When you were 3 years old, I was here. I didn't see you, but
Big place.
yeah. And I had lunch with C.J. O'Donnell prior to his after he had left, and I said, "How much impact did Fernando Alonso have?" He said, "Let me tell you, he was here in 17. In 2018, we lost over 400,000 viewers on our, IndyCar.com. Why? Because he wasn't here. That's how powerful he is. And now, to me, having taken control of marketing, the control of the telecast worldwide, that's great for IndyCar. That's going to really, really build the series. And he's a huge name, but there's a lot of young guys that are coming from Formula that are coming here. There's a couple of them in here now that are going to be very good.
Yeah, and I think, it's a difficult task, but I think what you have to do is you have to take those opportunities where somebody like Fernando comes in and races, and you get that spike, and how do you hold on to those people, right? One of the things that I think IMS did very well is with the 100th running, there was a huge spike, right, in attendance. And in 17, the levels didn't drop to 2015 levels, right? It dropped a little bit, but it was still the highest it had been in a very long time. And so you have to take those opportunities to hold on to those fans that come and check it out. What I also think he's done for us is I've heard a lot more drivers not in this discipline say, you know what, I'd like to try Indy. And I think when you get more and more people like that are giving it a shot, it helps to grow, the prestige of the event, make it truly one of those Triple Crown that we've heard him reference in terms of winning, and so I think he's got an impact in a multitude of ways.
I think
It's not going to help.
time out. I think, the man has a huge following, and somebody pointed out what IndyCar really needs, and I don't quite understand because there's a couple of them. They need a hero here because when they go, Lewis Hamilton won in England and they booed him, and I forget who won in Germany, and he got booed. They follow their people. They don't care where they are. And I think. But it seems to me they got Joseph Newgarden, who's starting to come out. Alexander Rossi's going to be phenomenal. The kid is, from the first time I had him on here, he was now he's been traveling the world, and he'll be running, by the way, with Team Penske Acura team. He's co-driving, so you want to watch that. But I think that the series is being built and the personalities are coming out, and a lot of these guys are willing to take the extra appearance because they realize what it does for the series. And I think also in my mind, as you may or may not have heard, when Mark first came here, people said, what does he know about racing? He doesn't have to know. But what he knows how to do is put the right people in the right place, and that's what he's done. Yeah. And I mean, the thing is growing, and it's growing very rapidly, and I think it's great. And I think Speedway joining is going to be huge because they're going to do a lot of promotion.
Yes.
I remember when Subway Sandwich came on board, and they put out a stand-up of the driver whose name escapes me, and you could join. I drove across country to deliver a car out to the West Coast, and I'd stop at Subway, and they'd have the thing. I said, what's that? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, they just said to put it up. They had no clue what it was, and that's a mess. But I don't think Speedway won't make that mistake. They'll make sure everybody knows what it is and why.
Yeah, and actually they were in town yesterday from a marketing standpoint and a partnership standpoint and talking about it. They're very excited about it. They see a multitude of tie-ins to their product, to their brand. And it also, what partnerships like that do for us is it allows us to activate other partners that we have. So Miller Coors, soft drink companies, different groups like that want to partner with them and have what you're talking about, point of sale displays, posters in the window, that type of thing. And that's what they're interested in. And Speedway is a growing brand. We've talked to them about not only the 500 here, but then the other markets that we've got, St. Pete being one. And so I think you're going to see that be a partnership that continues to grow from an activation. And that's what we need. You need those folks that are going to go out and tell your story. And I feel like we're really assembling those. I can tell you, while NTT is a business-to-business group, if you would, consumers don't necessarily go out and buy NTT products. They love the sport, and so they're going to use their technology to bring that into the mobile application, to bring that into technologies that our engineering team can use, all in the thought process of how does this improve it for fans. So that's how they're going to have a huge impact on it. And so I think a lot about sponsorship is looking at those different categories that you have, looking at what you're trying to fill, and looking at what you're trying to achieve. And it takes a variety of those sponsors to really be successful. And I think we're lining those up nicely.
I know there's an announcement forthcoming with a presenting sponsor for the 500. And I understand it's going to be very good. And strangely enough, somebody who has something to do with that is scheduled to be here on the 26th of February. Allison and Matt Mindrum will be here. I mean, Allison Meglinton, not Allison Mindrum. They will be here, and we'll go over that and the sales that are going on with that and the attention. I remember back when I first came here, I said, "You're going to get a sponsor for the race?" Absolutely not. Indianapolis Motor Speedway is it. Well, obviously the world's changed, and so have they. And it's a good thing for everybody. Everybody benefits from it. Bill, what impressed me a lot was when Jay said you have a 5-year plan. My dad told me years ago, make 5-year plans. When you get to 5, another 5, and that's what they got. What's in that 5-year plan that he's talking about?
Well, our 5-year plan definition, it's a rolling type of calendar. So, we sat down and says, okay, what do we need to do to immediately impact the teams? That was cost and parts. So we sat down with Delara and worked through a plan and a system to try to help alleviate some of the costs to the teams. The other thing is making sure that people like Firestone are with us, and that again that the cost of their tires are something that the teams can swallow. We also decided that there were certain parts on the car that needed to be changed. So as we sat down, we laid out, okay, when can you introduce, these different changes? And, they coincided, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And, each year, something new has been introduced. We got a new electronics package this last year with the car. We're working on a couple systems, that are, again, changing out from traditional parts to something that people can talk about, electrification, some things like that. So we just keep stepping through year by year and going, what can we introduce? Obviously the big picture is, a new engine package, which we announced with our partners, Honda and Chevrolet. That'll come online in 2021. Our objective is a new car in 2022. And the thing about this that's great for the first time is teams can now see what they need to do to go racing. They can sit down and go, okay, I need this amount of money this year, next year, the year after. I can go to a sponsor and say, look, this is what we need to do. It's not like just shooting a dart at a board and say, I need $1 million next year. And all of a sudden they get their $1 million, then the following year, I need $2.5 million. They can plan it out. And again, from a team side, I can't tell you how much we've been screaming for somebody to have organization like this, and Jay recognized that, and again through the department we sat down and identified those different areas, and he says, okay, we're going to put it on paper, we're not going to change from it, You know, this is what the team owners are going to get to see. It's what the team managers are going to see. It's what the drivers are going to see. Everybody knows. Everybody buys in. So they have some accountability and ownership of what we're doing as a group.
When does the 100 horsepower increase come up?
Well, we're going to make a very significant increase in the new engine in 21.
Yeah.
And then it's got a 6-year life. And as each year, the plan is to increase horsepower through the life of the engine. So we're going to have a lot of power. It's going to be a very exciting car to drive from a driver's standpoint. I think that's something that's been sorely missed for quite a while. You know, the feedback we got this year with this car, they all got out of the cars with their eyes about as big as saucers going, I'm having fun. It's challenging me. So, you know, we're continuing down that path to make it a challenging series and an exciting series for the fans to watch.
And I thought it was interesting to listen to the track, something you hadn't heard in years. They got out of the gas in the corner sometimes. They had to do that. And I said, what's the car like to drive? We have to now drive it. We are driving. It's not stuck to the track, so we just turn the wheel a little bit. You have to drive it because it does get a little wobbly, and they're loving it. And I got to think that your thoughts on the safety of the car are such that with the safer barriers, that the cars can handle the speeds without, you know, the driver ending up in pieces.
Well, the great thing is that because we've reduced the downforce, the cornering speeds go down, so it's not like the idea of a ball at the end of a string and you're waiting for that string to snap. You know, these guys now say, okay, I can feel the car break away. I go into a slide. I know I can give it some control before I hit the wall, or I hit the wall at the attitude that I want to hit the wall at. So it's put the car back in the driver's hands, and that's what I think is really critical for us to succeed.
And I think, and I've said this 500 times, that at the end of a season, when the IndyCar Series champion is crowned, he's probably, without question, the greatest driver in the world, because you have to have everything. You got to be good at everything: short tracks, big tracks, road courses, street courses, the whole 9 yards. If you win the championship, you're the best in the world.
Amen.
Okay.
We have the true, I believe, race car champion of the world. And a driver of mine long ago was debating whether to go Formula One racing or staying here. And based on that discussion, he stayed here and ended up winning a couple championships.
Really?
Yep.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think another guy who came from Formula One, and I think when he first got here was kind of eyeing as a step and then go back, I'm told now is full into IndyCar. It's more fun, it's more exciting, it's closer racing, and it's just fun to do.
Yeah.
And he's gotten to where the fans love him, and the more they know about him, the more they're going to love the kid. I'm talking about Alexander Rossi, of course. He's an outstanding young man, too. Well, Mr. Chief of Staff, I thank you for your time. I am so pleased with, from the time I met you when you first got here to where you are today and what you're doing. I think it's phenomenal. I know there's still a couple of teams that say, you know, you were right, and now look where he is. I said, well, yeah, I took a shot and you were right. Thanks for that. Thanks for being here. And well, somewhere during the end of the year, before the end of the year, I'll probably call you again, since your office is right down the street.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I always love coming on, love talking about the sport. It's an awesome sport. Bill and everybody are doing such a great job, really, you know, having one vision and saying, how do we grow this? And it's got a very bright future. So always happy to come on and talk about it.
Thanks for being here. And what's this with the windscreen? Will we see that this year, or is that still to be determined?
It's a very, very, what do I want to say, delicate procedure. You know, it's a great idea just to bolt something on the cars, but again, we race so differently than everybody else in the world. You know, we want to make sure whatever we put on the car is right for our application. So if it's the windscreen, you know, we're going through testing. We're working very diligently and very hard, analyzing data to see if this would, you know, provide the protection that we want to provide for the drivers. It's going to take a while. You know, I can't give you a date or a time frame, but you know, we're working very diligently to provide, you know, some type of safety protection for the drivers going forward.
And it won't be a halo.
We're looking at all options.
I hope it's not a halo. Thanks for being here. Thanks for
you
the
very
job you're
much.
doing. I think that what you guys are doing and your team is doing with the cars are phenomenal, and I can't wait to see how the new changes work out this year, because they've started out looking good, and you guys don't just say, well, we're done now for another year. You're working constantly trying to make it better.
Absolutely. It's an ongoing challenge. Our series is only as good as the people that work in it. It's the drivers, the teams, us. Like you said, we don't sit back and just show up at the races and watch it, unfold. We participate in it. We get feedback from the teams every week, and we just continue trying to make it better.
Well, so far you're doing good. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Chief of Staff Mark Sibla, Vice President Engineering, Mr. Bill Pappas. Thanks for being here. I'm going to bring a young man up here. He's feeding his face, but he'll wipe the dust off his. In the meantime, I'm going to mention, if you are looking for insurance for your car, your home, or your commercial piece of property, give Mike Pardee at VP Insurance a call. He can help you, and you'll find you'll probably get better coverage for less money. He's located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. You can call him for an appointment. Number is 317-248-0070. That's VP Insurance in Speedway, 317-248-0070. Stitches too. What a great place. If you need anything embroidered, stitches, hats, shirts, jackets, whatever you need, Fran can handle it. So give him a call. The number is 317-271-3444. She's located just south of the Speedway in Gasoline Alley. So give her a shout. Get over there. And if you haven't joined the IndyCar Nation, you need to join. There's a lot of perks that come with it, a lot of things you can do and see at the racetrack. They're a part of a membership in there, so you got to join it. Just go to IndyCarNation.com and sign up, and you'll be glad you did. And don't forget, if you got a group coming into town that would like to tour some shops and see what's going on in the city, why not call Bill and Stephanie Throckmorton at the Grand King Race Shops. They got a limousine. They take 6 to 8 people. They'll pick you up wherever you are and deposit you. In the meantime, you can go to the museum. You go to a few race shops, and they'll bring you back. If you want to find out about it, give them a call. Their office number is 317-820-3595, or Bill's cell, and he loves to talk to you. His number is 317-371-0290. My next guest is a gentleman who came into town and harassed me to be on the program. And then he had Bill call up, and he harassed me and threatened me and everything else. So he's here. He's a co-founder of the Vintage Indy Registry, and it's a growing organization and doing very well. He's in town here not only to see me because I'm such a nice guy, but he stopped by to have coffee with Bill and have a toddy with Fluffy. And then he's leaving tomorrow for St. Louis for the car show, and they're taking the Budweiser McLaren down there to show. Is there any Budweiser in the car? I mean, Hurtubise used to have beer in his car. You got any Budweiser in the car?
Chances are we'll probably have some Budweiser in that car come Sunday afternoon.
Oh, boy. Anyway, he's here on his way through. He comes from Alabama. I don't know why. It's cold
Georgia.
here. That, too. It's a lot warmer there than here, but he's here, and we're glad to have him. Please welcome Mike Lashnett.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me on, and it's always a pleasure to see you.
See if this works better. How rapidly is your organization growing? Are you getting?
It's growing by leaps and bounds, actually.
How many car memberships do you have? Cars registered in your organization?
We're well over 100 car owners and way north of 100 cars on the registry.
And how often do they get to run? Do you have an event that you have, but do your guys participate in others that?
Yes, most of our members, most of them go to Legends Day at Indianapolis for the running of the historic cars at the IMS Museum Betsy Smith puts on, and most of them, many of them participate in the Classic Racing Times events out at Pocono and Phoenix, and these guys like to run these cars.
It's a funny thing. You buy one, you restore it. Why not drive it?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in that. To buy one of these cars and to restore it and just to let it kind of sit in a museum or somebody's collection and not exercise it, I think is almost akin to being criminal.
Oh boy.
Got to get those cars out there and get them back out in front of the public.
You told me that you have some exciting announcements. What are they?
Well, you had Chris Blair on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he did. And Bill, by the way, Bill, did you get the size hat he needs now? Okay.
Yeah, they're going to Chris tomorrow. I'm headed to St. Louis tomorrow morning, but you had Chris on, Chris Blair, the general manager down at Gateway, and we're confirmed to go back to Gateway with IndyCar in August. And we were there this past year. It was a tremendously successful event. You had us on the show. You had me on the show prior to that event. We ended up with 26 great vintage cars down there and over 2 hours of track time, and everybody had a great time.
That's one thing that has gotten a lot of people's attention when Chris was here, that there's not a lot of dead time. He's got something going, so if you go there at 10 in the morning, you're going to be busy until after the race in the afternoon.
You're absolutely correct. Chris Blair's theory about promoting an event, for instance, down at Gateway, is he wants the fans to be allowed into the facility early in the morning, and he wants something in front of them on the track all day long. So in the instance of the vintage Indy cars, that really fits the bill. And they threw 2 hours of track time at us, and actually IndyCar got on the radio with me and Chris and said, would you like a little more? So I went down to every car owner, every driver sitting on the grid, and I said, instead of 20 minutes, it's going to be 30 or 45 minutes. Is that okay with you? And to a man, everybody said yes. We'll take it.
Really?
Yeah.
Gee, that's amazing.
I wasn't surprised.
No, of course not. Do you have a sponsorship for your series as a couple of the other ones do?
We've got some great sponsors, and they've come back on board with us for 2019. We have Hagerty Vintage Motorsports Insurance, and a lot of people are familiar with Hagerty and have their street rods and vintage cars and race cars insured with them. And we've also got Speedway Motors out of Lincoln, Nebraska, Clay Smith and his brothers, and John McKeegan out there in the museum side of it, the Museum of American Speed. And if no one's been to Lincoln, Nebraska, to the Museum of American Speed, you must go. It is phenomenal, a phenomenal facility.
You know, the neat trip would be to go from here, go to Lincoln, go to that museum, and then go down and see the Unser Museum.
That's absolutely correct. That's another great museum, Al's Museum and Bobby's in Albuquerque.
And I just got some pictures somebody sent out from Barber. He expanded his, and now he's got a bunch of race cars in there as well.
That's correct. The Barber Museum down at Barber Motorsports Park is phenomenal. The track down there, for those that haven't been there, is, it's just really unique and just a beautiful facility.
When are you going to take your group down there?
Well, it's something that we're thinking about. I mean, I'd love to see the vintage Indy cars out at COTA, and I'd like to see the vintage Indy cars down at Barber.
Well, are you on the phone regularly, or you stop in to see Bill?
I'm on the phone every day. This has become a full-time job. We're going back to Gateway. We're confirmed for Gateway. We're in conversation now with, have been for some time, with Road America, George Brugenthies and Mike Kirchner up there, the new general manager. And there's still a really strong chance we'll be taking the vintage Indy cars at Road America in June. And also Tim McGrain, the new general manager out of Laguna Seca, he contacted us right after Gateway, and I went out and had a meeting with him. I went to Rensport and met with him, and then my partner Ron Nelson was out there over Thanksgiving and met with Tim McGrain again, and we're kind of waiting on IndyCar to see if they're going to give him any track time for us, and hopefully that'll work out. So,
you could be a traveling show.
could be.
Do any of the SVR cars that aren't running an event the weekend do they come and join you as well?
They do, yeah. There's a lot of our SVRA participants here at Indianapolis that come and run with us. Dr. Bob Dix and Bob Receiver and, I don't know, several different people. Phil Gumford.
How about Kent Baker?
Nope, Kent didn't come.
Why?
Kent needs to come.
I know he does. He said I saw him and he said, I'm back driving it. What are you driving? He's got, I forget what he's got, a Corvette, I think.
Yeah.
He whips around.
Some of those guys have Indy cars, so Phil Gumford's got a 69 Eagle. He brought it down to Gateway and had a great time with us.
Well, it's interesting to follow this because your good friend and mine, Tony Perella, said he wanted to make vintage racing mean something. And by golly, it's starting to. People are starting to recognize vintage racing as a serious sport. It's a fun sport, and if you've got the car and you've taken the time to put it together, drive it. And there's now get the schools to teach them how so they don't go out and wreck their own equipment.
I agree with you, and I take my hat off to Tony Perella and to Gary Monshine, Classic Racing Times. These guys, they got the ball rolling with this, and it's a formidable force. All the vintage racing in all forms, not just IndyCar, but sports cars and everything else.
And I think Gary told me he's going to have another because he lost Phoenix.
Picked up Iowa.
Yeah, he's got Iowa going.
Yeah.
Gary's doing a nice job with his, and he sends out a quarterly paper. If you subscribe to it, it's really good. Very interesting stories, and he's a writer too. Besides,
he does a great job. And in the past, I've written a couple articles for him. And a couple of years ago, the Vintage Indy Registry gave him the Indy Brick Award up at Pocono at his event. So,
really?
Yeah.
Where did you get the brick?
Well,
okay, all right.
It's a long story, but I'll tell it to you really quickly. Back in 71, 72 era, I worked for George Bignotti at Vels Parnelli Jones, and in doing that, we maintained our garages at the Speedway during the summertime and stored stuff in there. And occasionally George would send me over there to pick something up. Well, after the 72 race, they tore up the short chute between 1 and 2 to build the new tunnel because they were going to build the museum. And one day I was over there, and in the garage area was Charlie Thompson and Clarence Cagle, and I had noticed when I drove into the track to go to Gasoline Alley, the old Gasoline Alley, that there was this fenced-off area kind of inside Turn 1, and they had a mountain of bricks there. Yeah. So I was pretty brave at that age, and I asked Clarence if I could have a brick. And so he sent Charlie Thompson over there with me, and he actually gave me a section of the track. I don't know how many bricks. It was probably 10 or 12 bricks, and they were all hooked together, and put them back in the back of the station wagon, took them down to the Vels Parnelli Jones shop. Of course, everybody wanted one, so we all chipped out a couple of bricks for ourselves. That's how I ended up with some bricks.
Oh, I see. Those are
Don't tell Tony George, though.
Well, he wasn't around then. He was still in grade school. Good grief.
Yeah.
Those are prized, and there's still a bunch of them available. There's still a bunch of them
around. You can find them on eBay and whatnot. And
I think there's some on the property someplace, I've been told.
Yeah, I've been told they're around there, and some of them were dumped, in the creek there to the north and whatnot.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go diving in there.
No.
Certainly not in May, because I know some of the water that goes through there, where it came from.
That's a beautifully, beautiful item to collect and to have, and a lot of history there.
So what are you going to do besides have the Budweiser McLaren at the show? What are you going to be promoting your events? Are you promoting joining you and so forth?
Gateway has the largest display at the St. Louis Auto Show every year, and they have for the past few years since they revived the track down there with IndyCar and whatnot. And we participated last year. We took Angus Russell's 71 Foyt Coyote down there, and it was a big hit. And this year we're taking the Bud McLaren, the 78 Bud McLaren M24B at Johnny Rutherford, and Anheuser-Busch is, St. Louis based. So
yes, it is.
This is a win-win for everybody, Gateway, us, and Anheuser-Busch.
Is Busch contributing something or participating somehow or another?
Well, I can't say.
Oh.
But they sell Budweiser beer at Gateway.
Gee, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And by the way, Chris Blair said to say hi and that he will return your call tomorrow.
Sure he will. It's kind of fun. What got you into this vintage business?
Well,
were you retired with nothing else to do, and your wife said, do something?
I was retired, and I'm a former Marine. I think you know that. And I have a nephew on active duty in the Marine Corps right now. He just got deployed to Syria on Monday. But when he graduated from boot camp, about 10 of us family members went out to San Diego for his graduation ceremony. And Philippe de Lispinay, who's a friend of Dan Gurney, was a friend of Dan Gurney's and owns a 72 Eagle, invited me to go down and have lunch at Dan's and at AAR and see Dan's collection. And in doing that, I got invited to come back and help them with a 72 Eagle for the 100th anniversary of the 500, and it just kind of took off from there for me.
And I understand your wife said, you've been home too long. Why don't you go up for the show?
That's correct. So although she's been a trooper, she's gone to a lot of events. She reminds me that we've taken 15 racing-related trips this year. So
how many is there going to be this year?
Well, it'll probably be easily that many.
I see.
I think I'm already up to 2. So.
And your nephew graduated from the Marine base out in San Diego, right next to the Navy base.
That's correct. He did. Yes.
And when I was out there as a recruit, and I'm in our company commander coming bang on the garbage can. Everybody up.
Right. Reveille. All hands reveille.
Yeah. That's not all he said.
The Marine Corps did it the same way, actually.
And we'd stand there. He said, "All right, attention by your bunks." So we'd stand, "Attention. You hear that?" And you could hear, "Huh, huh, huh." You know what that is? That's the Marines running in the sand. You guys don't get it. You'll be out there with them. Boy, did we move then. Zip!
Right.
You could hear them out there in the sand, though.
Marine Corps, first in, last out.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by. I know you can't wait to get to St. Louis, but I have a feeling that Rick Duman is probably busy right now.
Yes, Rick's going with me. Rick maintains the Budweiser McLaren and out at Brownsburg at his facility, Duman Turn 4 Restoration, and the owner of that car has several vintage Indy cars out there.
Yeah, he does.
At Rick's.
Yeah.
Quite a few, actually.
Yeah, there's enough that you and I could drive a different one every day for a week.
That's true. While I'm up here and on the mic,
yes.
I mentioned to you, and I'll ask everybody in the audience, how many people would like to see IndyCar back at Milwaukee?
Yay!
So, how many people would like to see vintage Indy cars back at Milwaukee?
If you're going to do one, why not do the other?
Yep. Well, we've been recently contacted just this week. He's been after me for a long time, is Bob Sargent of Track Enterprises, and he's taking a race back up to Milwaukee on Father's Day weekend, and it's an ARCA
race,
Midwest Tour race, and they've asked if we'd be interested in going up. So we haven't said yes, we haven't said no, and we're trying to see how many cars we could get and what kind of interest we could get from the fans to take the vintage Indy cars up there Father's Day weekend 2019 as a companion event to the ARCA event.
Why don't you see if you can get Bob to say, why don't you promote an IndyCar race?
Yeah.
Because he knows how to do that, and he's got the people to make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
I think I know. I used to couldn't wait to leave. 500 is over, go right up to Milwaukee for the race, and it was always great. Always great.
And then in August, the day after Springfield, I grew up over near Springfield, and as a kid, I'd love to go to that dirt race at Illinois State Fairgrounds, and a lot of times the guys would have the rear engine cars on the trailers over there, and they'd go straight. They'd beeline Springfield overnight up to Milwaukee, and pretty cool deal.
I said when they announced the Mario Andretti thing, Lloyd Ruby was in here one night, and I said, "What do you think about the series the way it's going?" He said, "Them boys ain't champions if they ain't run the dirt."
That's right.
And I said, "Would you like to see him run dirt, Mario?" He said, "Yeah, but I don't think it'll ever happen."
Well, I think IndyCar's doing great things today, but I'm really enthused about where IndyCar's going. But I have to tell you, I'm also a real fan of the dirt, and I'm still a believer in the fact that the 1970 season was the last real championship year.
Well,
in many ways.
Oh yeah, to some degree you're right.
Yeah. By the way, I've seen some pictures from Gateway building out the setup down at the auto show, and the backdrop for the auto show down there is IndyCar, one of IndyCar's 18-wheelers, and it's already got the NTT data on it.
Oh, it's on
livery.
Everything. Unbelievable.
It's on everything already,
oh, yeah.
Which is really impressive.
I got this email about signing up for the credential. All of the stuff coming out from email from is all NTT IndyCar series, and they've changed the logo. That didn't take long to happen.
No, It did not. So kudos to IndyCar. I mean, that's just amazing to me.
Yeah, they're doing a good job.
Doing a great job.
All right. For all of you, as I said, if you are thinking, gee, I had to go to Gateway, it sounds like a lot of fun. It is. Here's some information on how to get the bus ride. As you heard Ruthie, is there beer? Yeah. Is there food? Yeah. Can you have a good time? Yeah. So if you want to sign up, here it is, what you get for it. So sign up and go down there, and you can see the vintage Indy registry cars there.
Right, and if you do sign up, if you have a ticket to Gateway and you go to Gateway, that ticket is good in our Vintage Indy paddock. So your ticket's a pit pass into the Vintage Indy registry paddock, and it's fan friendly, and you can get up close to these great old cars and people. And there's usually several drivers there, from the past. John Martin was there last year, and I'm sure we'll have Donnie Beechler was there last year, and I'm sure we'll have some others this year.
I had forgotten Donnie Beechler won the Chili Bowl one year, I think in '97 or something like that. He's
He
a
won
good
the
driver.
Yeah, and also the Hut 100.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's a good driver.
Oh yeah.
He keeps telling me, call me, I'll come over here, but I call him, he doesn't answer the phone.
He's actually got a home now in Indianapolis. He's from Springfield, but
Yes.
they have a home over here. Their daughter's going to college here, and you should get Donnie on your
Oh,
show.
well, I'll get him.
Yeah.
I'll chase him down. He said, sure, I'll be up there.
Yeah.
All right. Look forward to seeing you in August at the Indy Vintage Registry display and show and racing, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Is John going to be there this year?
We'll have John Martin down there. Yeah, absolutely.
Is he going to be driving or just signing autographs?
John will be driving. He drove this past year. He drove a Roadster down there and drove a couple Roadsters, actually.
Why
So
did
we'll
he-
have John Martin back down there.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, he was in Bob Receiver's Bo Seal Fast car, and he was in one of Chuck Haynes' Roadsters as well.
The man still got it. He's
He's
still got it. He's
Yeah,
got it.
we need to get Eldon Rasmussen down there.
Oh, boy. Are you kidding? Diane says, you think I'm driving him down, or you're nuts.
And one other piece of news I can share with you is I was out at Rensport. I went out there to meet Tim McGrain, and I went out with Angus Russell, who owns several vintage Indy cars, but also a 962 Porsche that he runs in HSR events. And I ran into Bobby Rahal out there. So we start talking, and I've discovered that he was really interested in acquiring a vintage Indy car. And to make a long story short, since Rensport, he has bought a 66 Eagle,
Really?
which he has at Don Hovel's shop up in Chicagoland. Don Hovel worked for Paul Newman and Carl Haas for a long time.
Right.
So they're redoing this car, and so Bobby has joined the registry, registered his Eagle, and plans on participating with us.
You're just growing.
Growing, yeah.
The world is suddenly becoming aware. Vintage cars. Wow.
I think it's great.
Well, it's doing well. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Don.
Now, I realize that you came because Bill's mom makes the best cookies, and you've probably had some around just for you to.
I've had some.
Enjoy.
I'm always well treated out at the Grant King shop.
They didn't. Well, I walk in, they hand me a broom. Do you get that treatment?
Well,
That's what I thought. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks
All
for
right,
stopping
Don.
by, and we'll see you in August, if not before.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Michael Ashmet, Vintage Indies Racing. Don't forget, my first scheduled guest next week is going to come and tell us all about the recovery of Rob Wickens. He's out there working with him right now, and that's Jim Leo, the guru at PitFit. We'll find out, are these drivers really athletes? We'll find out. He'll be here next week. So join us, and I've got another one or two that I'm working with. So we'll have a good program. Stop in next week. Until then, Don Kay saying thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Sorry we started a little late. Technological world isn't all that's great. See you next week. Thanks. And don't forget, if you're thinking about going to Gateway, there's a couple of brochures up here that'll tell you all about it, what you get for what you got, and the bus ride. Oh, listen, this isn't just woofy stuff here. We're top shelf. And the pamphlets are in color. This is top shelf.